I promised myself that I would try to not go after super obvious pros and cons, but it really must be said, the animation in this film is great. This is certainly a lot more fluid than Wes Anderson's previous stop-motion film, Fantastic Mr. Fox. If you want me to point out any one moment that showcases the beautiful animation, just look at the sushi making scene. It is just so transfixing to watch, and there are lots of nice little touches, like the fish continuing to move its mouth up and down long after it's been decapitated. Also, as a side note, it is refreshing to see a stop-motion film that's not yet another creepy horror film. The dialogue is something that people are either praising or criticizing the film for, and honestly, it is going to come down to personal taste. Me personally, I think the dialogue is incredible and well written. True, it doesn't sound like the way real people actually talk, but the stylization of it works really nicely, and its consistency in that regard helps give the film an identity. I think one of the things that really helps make this film as great as it is its ability to bring so much pathos to its characters, even with characters that we barely get to know. There are a lot of characters in this film, and the way it makes you feel empathy for all of them, even when we know very little about them, is really quite something. Through the combination of the great character designs, marvelous mood and atmosphere, and incredible voiceover work, the film manages to be genuinely emotional without feeling manipulative. Every attempt at wringing sympathy and tear-jerking moments feels earned. I was actually fooled by a fake-out death. That's actually really difficult to pull off. Normally I'd be pissed that it's in there at all, but I'm just impressed at how they managed to actually pull it off so effectively. Can I just stop for a second and say how refreshing it is to see a Western animated film that isn't made for kids, that also isn't just filled to the brim with adult content? This film was rated PG-13, and it wasn't a rating that the filmmakers got just by throwing in a single F word. The rating was actually earned through its more mature story. Because of that, the story doesn't feel neutered in the slightest. You can tell that Wes Anderson didn't care about appealing to a certain demographic in particular. He just wanted to tell the story that he wanted to tell, and was able to do so. And that lack of restriction helps the story, and really the film as a whole, feel so organic. The way the language barrier operates between humans and dogs is a little confusing. Most of the time they seem to be acting like they can't understand each other. I kind of thought that was the point of having Atari speak Japanese without subtitles, so that the audience is put in the same spot as the dogs. But then when Spots is giving Chief his old job position, Atari acts like he completely understands what's going on. I don't know, I guess it works fine, but I kind of wish they had made this just a little bit more clear as to how language operates in this world. I know it's supposed to be a joke, and don't get me wrong, it is funny, but I don't know, is it me, or is it a little weird to have the dogs going through the compactor and then come out the other side completely unscathed? Given how bleak and more grounded the rest of the film is, that moment maybe felt just a touch out of place. Some people didn't like the character of Tracy, and honestly, I didn't have a problem with her, because I do think it's important that the audience see that there is a faction of people in Japan, besides Atari, that are pro-dog and willing to stand against Mayor Kobayashi, and she fulfills that role just fine. I will concede, however, that her scenes, especially the ones early on, are the least good in the film. That's probably because her first couple of scenes are more introducing her and setting up her role for later without offering much substantive for her to do. The later scenes in which she finally gets involved with the plot, though, are better, so there is that. Once the third act starts, Rex, King, Duke, and Boss kinda just fade a little bit into the background. They're still there, and we do get to see what becomes of them, which is of course nice to see, but still, given how prominent they were early on, it does feel a little weird that they're not given as much screen time near the end. It's not too distracting because honestly there wouldn't have been much for them to do anyway, and they don't disappear altogether. But maybe I would have liked 1 or 2 more quick scenes with them. It also felt kind of douchey that the other dogs basically bullied Chief into fighting one of the robot dogs early on in the film. I think it can be mostly forgiven because I guess they assumed that it was an actual dog, or they just assumed that Chief likes fighting, but still, it just seems like a little too mean. Thank you so much for watching. If you have another film that you'd like to see me tackle, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.